how far can I go with my new customer loss?
You don't want to have to wait 12 months to understand what the CAC to LTV is on this offer. You want to make sure you're maintaining quality, but I think that the quantity piece often goes overlooked.
You got to really get in the head of your ICP, why people have bought from you in the past, why are they landing on your site, what are they looking for, what are their felt needs. There's a strategy in this list for every brand. Dylan, what's up, man?
We're still talking about 2026.
Man, 2026 is here to stay.
I know it really is. It really is. At least for 365 days, you know?
Is it a leap year? I haven't checked that. So it's either 365 or 366. We're talking today about growth strategy opportunities going into 2026. I'm excited to hear your takes on this stuff. I've got some thoughts too. I know we've kind of made a list of things, but what do you think is the single biggest growth strategy opportunity that you think impacts most brands that we're involved with or talking to these days?
I got to put them in two buckets. So if you're a high LTV store, CAC to LTV optimization. So I think that a lot of brands, like most brands we're working with, are kind of 7-8 figure brands trying to get bigger, often call it like $5 to $50 million a year in sales. And oftentimes in that kind of like growth stage, you'll eventually reach the point, especially in CPG, where you're acquiring at a loss. And sometimes the way to make even more money is to acquire at an even bigger loss and just decrease first order AOV, increase subscribe and save take rate. So basically like a trial pack that rolls into a subscription or giving people the option. I think that is the biggest lever for a lot of replenishable businesses or anything with a subscription. On the flip side of that, for a high SKU count store, the name of the game is going after a high AOV and testing out buy more, save more. So that's really like the two main ones I would say is, depending on the category you're in terms of offer testing, is how do you test the mechanics of the trial offer? How much do you give from a discount standpoint? Is it a subscription only? Do you give both options? Then from there, what is the wording? And likewise on buy more, save more, is it buy 3 get X, buy 5 get Y, buy 8 get Z? Like, how are those tiers working? What do you have to do to accomplish it? I think that offer testing in general is often going to be one of the highest leverage opportunities. And I'd say those are the two things I'd be focusing on at least from an offer standpoint going into 2026.
Interesting. So I was having this conversation with a brand last week. They're not a high LTV like product category, so like they are new customer dominant, and he hadn't thought through like the fact that incrementally on the margin his CAC was going up as he was spending more on ad spend. He wasn't thinking about the fact that, like, you know, that profit per order on new customers is just like, you know, slowly whittling away and getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And like he did understand and had been thinking about the concept of like, well, if my volume increase is overcoming that profit per order decrease, I still may be making more, you know, absolute total contribution margin dollars. But he didn't think about, I brought up to him like, hey, but have you thought about trying to get gross margin dollars per order up? Because I mean, like, if you think about it, it's gross margin dollars per order minus CAC is your contribution margin or your profit per order in simple terms, right? And he's like, no, I didn't think about that. And he's like, I can think of a couple things that are natural for me to consider bundling and offering some sort of a buy more, save more discount. But here's my question to you, because I was talking with this guy about this last week. Do you see in your experience more success around buy more, save more of like multiple quantities of the same SKU, or like coming up with a thoughtful bundle of products that makes sense to buy alongside a hero product? You might say it's both end, but like I want to talk about those two things because they're distinctly different from an offer standpoint, and also I'm just curious if you see one like work well or work better than the other.
Most often, I'm a fan of letting it be a site-wide or like categorical-wide offer, where as you navigate the site, it is clear via a progress bar that follows you how close you are to that next threshold and what you have to do to actually accomplish that next threshold. Let's say I'm selling face cream. Normally, it's going to be more of the same thing, but what I've actually found a lot, not always, but a lot, is it's actually I have a counter incentive to selling you a 12 pack up front, because you're going to take so long to go through it.
Bingo. That's why. Bingo.
It's just like, it's not worth it for me, because
Yeah.
the CAC to get that customer is so high. I'd rather try and convert that customer on the 3-pack and have them come back within the next 30 days.
Totally.
Renew, because the CAC on that will be better for me. And I think it's kind of a mind shift where like the buy more save more offers actually originated, from what I can tell, more so on the CPG side. But ironically, while I still think they should be ran, because I'm actually a believer in you should run for ROAS and CPA and just have different targets based off of the LTVs of different first order basket sizes or products. But I think that ironically, you're now seeing these buy more save more type offers work better on like high SKU count stores, and then you have the CPG brands basically being like, I can't find a way to make money on first order, so if I can't make money on first order, I have to play the LTV game, and if I'm going to play the LTV game, how do I get the best CAC to LTV? I want to sell you less stuff. So it's almost gone like a complete 180, in my opinion.
Well, I'm thinking about something in real time as you're talking through this. Like, when we're talking about growth strategy opportunities for any brand, like, I think what I'm realizing as I talk to more and more brand founders, week in and week out, is that like a lot of brand founders get a store started, they bring a product to market, and like day one unit economics are making sense. They work, they're profitable, but they're not thinking about the trend of said unit economics per order as they continue to scale. And I think that a lot of I'm going to talk specifically about new customer dominant brands, whether it's high SKU count or not, but it's not like a high 3 to 6 month LTV consumable brand, right? A lot of those brands, they are thinking about more frequently TAM, and that helping to keep their CAC under control. And TAM, both from the perspective of like, there's just a huge TAM and I'm like the first to market, right? Or I'm going to get into multiple sales channels, which is going to open up the TAM, neither of which are necessarily durable, right? But what they're not necessarily thinking about is like, am I creating a product where buy more, save more, from a bundling perspective, or buying more than one, even makes sense to the consumer? Because that's at the end of the day, you can't change that. If it doesn't make sense to buy more and save more of your product, there's a lot of brands out there, like, it just doesn't make sense to buy more, save more. Maybe during the holidays if I'm going to gift one to somebody else, but it just doesn't make sense. Like, I guess the point that I'm making is I want brand founders to hear this, that like there is a way to I've seen new customer dominant brands successfully increase gross margin dollars per order over time by getting people to buy more in their basket on a new order. But you do need to think about like what you're asking them to buy more of. Does it make sense to the consumer, or is it just randomly asking them to buy 2, 3, or 4 of something that no one would ever feasibly want to buy 2, 3, or 4 of?
Yeah, it usually makes the most sense when you already have people naturally buying multiple things together. By introducing these offers, though, you might just end up having them buy even more things, or have a higher percentage of people buy more things. It's very difficult to turn a store that doesn't have any of this. If you don't have a product and a catalog that lends itself to buy more, save more, I think you have to go and release more new products that cost more money. Because you can get some percentage of people to basically graduate and purchase, instead of the original base thing for $100, I'm going to spend the $250 option. Like, you found a way to get traffic onto your site.
For sure.
If you want to get AOV up, you basically have to add a new offer where you can get 5% of people to spend $250, therefore increasing AOV by however many dollars that would be.
Totally.
I'm not a fan of selling cheaper stuff.
No, I was just about to say that, like accessories. Like the reason why that's near and dear to my heart is because bikes. What are the accessories? A bell, a basket, a water bottle. Some of that stuff can be pretty low margin to start. Like if you want to like get water bottles, for example, a $10 product. Let's just say you sell it for $10 or even $15. To get a really high margin on that, you need to buy a ton of them. And at the beginning, when you're trying to figure out, like I've seen brands buy a bunch of small accessories that are like low sales price value, load up on them to try to get the best price, and then like people are buying them and it's just not making they're not getting meaningful like take rates on them. and then they're just stuck with all this like crappy accessory inventory that they spent a bunch of money on. And it's like, so it can be a trap. I think you have to be much more thoughtful about like, what does the consumer that you're attracting to your site and is buying your whatever hero product or core product, who are they? Why are they buying it? And like, what can you really offer them to like truly meet additional needs that they have?
You can go and sell cheaper items, but if you do that, it's almost like you're entering a new category and you're eventually going to have to start selling more expensive things in that category, or that new category is going to have higher LTV. So like, for example, like let's say you're selling, I don't know, like some sort of consumer electronic device. I'm looking at like a microphone right now, and maybe I have my $100 entry mic and I started with that, but now I'm going to release the $200 one that's really, really good, and the $500 one that like only like 1% of my customers are going to buy, but you know, that can bring up my blended AOV. If I'm like, oh, like I want to get some like categorical diversification, I don't necessarily have to go and launch in a category where I sell a $500 thing. If I believe I can effectively get a good acquisition cost on a new category, that's fine. But I think when you're playing in the same category, for most brands, going up market instead of going down market will probably most often lead to the highest likelihood positive ROI on that product launch. There's probably exceptions where maybe you launched your first product at a product price that doesn't make sense. But I think in most consumer categories, that's usually not the trend. Like
For sure.
I think that's probably a fair statement.
I'm curious about the CAC to LTV optimization piece, in terms of like the biggest opportunities that you're seeing, or like if a brand has, you know, decent CAC to LTV, or they have legitimate LTV frequency or velocity that like can lend well to them like losing money. We've talked a ton about LTV to CAC, and we've talked about the balancing act, kind of like the seesaw, like how fast you can go. I want to get more practical here, because I was talking with a brand about this the other day. They're like, well, how far can I go with my new customer loss? And I think there's definitely some quote science to it in terms of like Free to Grow, Aplo. We both have our own respective models of where we can model out like if this is true, right? Based on historical data, how hard we might be able to push. But then there's the practical side, which is we go try it, and then we actually really see in reality, where is that line where we have to stop and retreat. Can you talk to me in like real terms, maybe use an example if you have one, of like how you go try to find that point where you should stop pushing on new customer loss?
Yeah. So I'll make up like a arbitrary example inspired by real life experiences. So let's say I have a buy more, save more offer where you can buy like 5, 10, or 15 units. And as you buy more, you save more. And as you subscribe and save, you save even more. That model is built to try and get the best ROAS. I'm trying to basically get people to buy more on that first order. And that is good. But the problem is, my point earlier, is that if you get a lot of people to buy 15 of something, and that lasts them on average 90 to 100 days, if you're not first order profitable, you're waiting so long to make your money back. So if let's say you just said, okay, I'm not going to do the 10 or the 15. I'm going to give the 5 unit only. I'm going to give one-time purchase at full price, and I'm going to give subscribe and save at 30, 40, 50% off my first order. In that process, based off after unit costs, I might lose more money than I did previously. But it's possible that when that subscription order renews, and frequently what we'll do is like order one is like a 5-pack, and then it renews at like a 10 or a 15-pack, but then it actually goes at a cadence that like makes sense. So maybe you get the 5-pack, it takes on average 10 days to consume or whatever, so it renews 14 days later, and then it renews every 60 days, but on a larger pack size. Basically what happens is, because of how fast the renewal happens, you realize so much value fast. And let's say let's just say like a crazy number of people unsubscribe. Let's say it's 50% unsubscribe between order 1 and 2. I guess that's not that crazy, but I'll keep that example. 1 and 2, 50% cut. But if your AOV goes up 3x, you actually like more than double your cohort value in 14 days. That's pretty awesome. And if your CAC went down enough on that because of that offer you're running, you basically might have a better 30-day ROAS than before, and a better CAC, and because more customers are on subscribe and save because the incentive is so high to get on subscribe and save, you then might have a better like 2 to 12 month LTV. There's one example that comes to mind where I'm pretty sure I'm trying to do the math in my head on like what the profit margin gain would be. But I know of an example where the 12-month LTV on an offer we recently tested was getting close to $100 more in 12 months than a business's like usual kind of 12-month LTV, which, you know, if you have like 50% gross margins, that's an extra $50 of profit that you just unlocked in a 12-month window just by moving more towards a low AOV initial entry offer that's subscribe and save focus. So yeah, like the payoff on these things can be huge. But it's a balance. It can also, it doesn't always work, but I'm seeing it work so often that for like high LTV brands, when we work with them now, I'm basically just like working with our team is just like, let's just focus on this one thing. It'll probably be obviously you have to like do the blocks and tackles of growing with the current offer, but in terms of like of the high leverage bets to make, if you just like focus on offer testing and find the perfect formula, because back to my previous example, not only can you test the first order AOV, the first order discount, then you can mess around with all the renewal terms. Like, does it renew after 14 days, 30 days? When it renews, is it the 5-pack, the 10-pack, the 25-pack? From there, does it default to renewing every 2 months, every 30 days? Obviously, you let customers adjust their subscription terms once they've opted in. But what you default the terms to can make a huge difference.
Wow. Yeah.
There's so many things you can play with.
And I'm curious, like when you're messing around with this like new CAC to LTV kind of like optimization testing to make sure that it's not too risky, you're still leaning into the offer that's been working up to this point to keep driving like a base amount of, you know, margin dollars every single month. Like how are you thinking about how big, like how much of the revenue stream, or I'll call it the margin dollar stream, what percentage of the margin dollar stream is like this new offer testing versus like the status quo to kind of keep the lights on, so to speak?
Yeah, so I mean, it's all relative to how much you're spending, but like I know one example recently where we were maybe spending like 10 to 15% of ad spend on a new offer. And basically the key thing with these offers is you basically have an arbitrage where first order amount is lower than the renewal amount. So you get that CAC to LTV gain. The problem is that first renewal, because of the difference, you're normally going to have higher churn between that initial order and the first renewal order. However, once you get past that second, third order, let's say you renewed at the higher volume, generally in our experience, the LTV from there looks very similar to a normal customer that just bought that amount initially. And the reason why this matters is because if you're doing CAC to LTV forecasting, you don't want to have to wait 12 months to understand what the CAC to LTV is on this offer. So basically what we do is we get the CAC to LTV and the churn amounts on between order 1, 2, and 3 usually. And then from there, we basically look at, okay, what are people now on subscribe and save? Let's look at the historical month 3 to month 12 cohort retention rates for that subscription plan and bolt it on to this new plan. And then let's maybe like make a 5 to 10% adjustment to the downside to say, hey, maybe some of these people are still going to churn a little bit higher than normal because they came in on a softer offer. And it's up to you how much you want to speculate that renewal path is going to be similar to other customers in the past, but more often than not, it is fairly similar once you get past that initial cycle. And that's right, in initial 3 cycles. And again, like it's a little bit of a game where it's like if you then forecast out getting an extra $5 over 12 months, it's like that's not really a win. Like maybe it is to like, but like it's not enough. But if you forecast out getting like I think the example I just said is close to $100 of value of revenue, and you have $50 of profit. Even if you're half wrong on that incremental gain, $25 over 12 months is still a good amount off of every single customer you bring in. So you have to kind of just decide how much you want to bet on that future coming true. And it is data driven, but there's a little bit more speculation than actually going off of just purely the historicals, if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. One of the tools that we use on the finance side of the world to help brands see this clearly is we have a CAC to LTV scenario model that we've built where like we bring in your historical, you know, cohort data, and we bring in your historical, you know, like AOV by cohort and contribution margin, or like say gross margin ratio, and we bring in your historical CACs, but then we sit down and we look at like, what you're trying to do on the marketing side to impact CAC and impact the cohort value over time. And we can actually reforecast the next 12 months of LTV. And we have these sensitivity inputs. We're like, what if CAC goes down by 10%, but LTV goes down by 20% in each of these months? Or what if it goes up by, and so what you're able to do is look and see when when your future cohorts become profitable by taking historical data, but then saying, I think this move is going to improve LTV by 10% and is going to drive down CAC by 5. And you can look and say, oh, I'm going from a 3-month break even to a 4-month break even. And then you can also go see what the cohort value is, 12 months out. And so it's not a predictor, but it's sensitivity analysis to go like, okay, I'm willing to place that bet. Worst case scenario, I think this is going to happen. Best case scenario, it's this. I'm willing to place that bet. So anyways, I like that. What do you think? So we talked about CAC to LTV optimization, increasing buy more, save more testing strategies. We dove into those. What do you think is the next what's the next biggest growth strategy opportunity for brands in 26?
And this is way easier said than done in marketing, is increase the volume of new product drops. So if you're going, especially if you're trying to increase the probability of hitting a profit target, one of the only ways you can really meaningfully impact return customer revenue and retention rates across your cohorts, outside of just continuing to tell the same stuff, is what is more likely to be impactful than necessarily an incremental improvement on an email flow. It's selling more new products that people want to buy more of, so you can increase the amount of money people who have bought from you before are going to spend with you in the upcoming year, because there's more options and more compelling things they can buy with you. So I think that the other comment I have is like more marketing moments. And this is one of those marketing moments. Like, how do you create more opportunities to drive outsized returns through your marketing? It's with new stuff, new products.
Yeah, it makes sense. And like, look, I know not every brand can do this, but one thing I like to think of when it comes to like increasing the volume of new product drops and like really trying to get more spend from your existing customers is thinking about if you can release products like before or after where your existing product sits in like kind of the consumption or use life cycle of said product category. I'll give you a clear one as an example. Again, I know not every brand can do this, but like with kids bikes at Guardian, we started with 20-inch bikes because there's the biggest TAM basically for like that size bike. And then we went to 24, and then we went to 16, and then we went to balance bikes, and then we went to 26, which is like almost an adult bike. What were we doing there? We started right in the middle, right, of like the age and size spectrum of kids. And then we went to an earlier bike or a smaller bike so we could capture a kid earlier, and they could now purchase more products from us because they have a longer life cycle with us, because we went down to earlier, then we went to later and made bigger bikes, and eventually now there's a full suite. You can buy your kid a bike from Guardian when they're 3, and they can have one all the way until they're an adult, right? And so we had that in mind, and that's how Guardian to this day gets people to spend more money over a lifetime relationship with the brand, is because they thought about, how do I release a product that like precedes the use of my current like hero product? And then what about one that lives like subsequent to that in kind of like the consumption life cycle? So think about that, because that's where you can most naturally get existing customers to buy more from you, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. Especially when you have like a product that naturally has a lifespan where you're eventually going to want to get like the next thing or the next thing.
I see some brands get desperate with like launching kind of tangential products to try to sell to existing customers, but it just like it doesn't fit the consumption or use journey. It doesn't fit the brand, but I have seen some brands successfully. Like there's a brand that I work with that it's at-home laser hair removal device. And what they did is they figured out how to sell some stuff that helps you prepare for the procedure the therapy that you're doing at home. And then they started getting you on a regimen of things to do afterwards, right? It's still all centered around using the device, but like, here's how you prepare for it. So like, you actually have to shave, like if you're doing your legs, you actually have to shave before you use it. So like, they have razor kit and shaving cream and like some like pre-treatment, like topicals. And then afterwards, like a regiment of other kind of skincare products that you use afterwards. And they also then worked on, like, technically it's not permanent hair removal. It lasts like 6 to 8 weeks, and you have to do it again. You don't have to buy a new device, right? The device is going to last forever, but there was this new kind of email marketing campaign around like educating everyone on needing to use this every 6 to 8 months. And here's the skincare regiment, right? And the consumables that you use before and you use after. And like, it was a lot of work to get that figured out, but like, they were able to meaningfully, push people to purchase bundles and also like purchase their skincare products.
Yeah, and if you're not going to do something like that where it's like obviously complementary, just expect to need to take more shots on goal to find winners. Like,
Totally.
we work with some brand founders who, like, even the people who I think are the best product people when it comes from having the highest hit rate of new products, their hit rate is still what I think most people would assume to be as abysmal. Like, if you get like 10 to 20% of your new products to really hit, that's actually really good. I think it's like one of those things where you launch like hundreds of ads or whatever, and you might be happy if you get one or two that really crush. Like, it's not that quite that big of a power law, I guess, with products, but like, it's still really high where you have like a few winners that just basically pay for all the losers. So yeah, I think like focusing on volume, obviously quality and quantity obviously are always a push and a pull. You want to make sure you're maintaining quality, but I think that the quantity piece often goes overlooked.
For sure. So the last thing that the last growth strategy opportunity for 2026 that you had prepared beforehand is cash flow focused to drive more profit. So funny, cash flow, profit, finance. I actually have no idea what you're talking about, so I'm dying to hear. What are you talking about when it comes to a cash flow focus to drive more profit as a growth strategy opportunity for 2026?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest opportunities for any high SKU count store is that the inventory function has to basically tell marketing what is not a productive unit to allow marketing to go and open up that cash on the balance sheet to go invest into products that can drive more profit. Basically getting rid of and optimizing the sell through of uh, poor ROIC, return on invested capital units on the balance sheet. I think that trying to figure out workflows to not only have a like business wide outcome goal, but also having like product level goals. And that's very hard sometimes if you have like 10,000 products. But
Totally.
maybe you identify the biggest 10 issues, the 10 biggest issue products every month or every week or something, or I establish workflows to unlock that opportunity. I think that is one of the ways that not only can you improve cash flow, but that's an example of when cash flow can actually improve profit. If that cash flow is used to go and buy something that can drive more profit than just having something sitting in a warehouse costing you money.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. It's like the stale SKU or the overstocked inventory position or the slow moving product. There's some intel in that's inherent in like that there was a mismatch between the ultimately like the inventory purchase decision and the actual sell through. If you can share those learnings from the ops, function or like inventory planning function back to the marketing team and vice versa, and go like, hey, that there's opportunities to unlock cash flow and profitability by optimizing the investment of capital into the right SKUs at the right time, such that marketing can sell them, right, and capitalize on maximizing margin dollars. So it's a great point, man. And like it's one of those things that, like, honestly, it usually doesn't get called out until the CFO, till like someone at Free to Grow CFO is like, hey man, we have too many days of inventory on hand. You start digging into it and find out that there's a few SKUs that are weighing down our inventory efficiency. And the marketing team doesn't necessarily know that.
Yeah, I actually think that like one of the things that D2C maybe doesn't do a good job of is like like overstock liquidation. I think that like traditionally with wholesale partners, you might be able to just go to them and say, hey, this is my price. I want to get rid of this stuff. It's a crazy deal. Like, and that may have been easier. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I think that for brands that don't have that channel to just liquidate, like it's basically like, how do you, what is your liquidation function? I think D2C as a whole, maybe that is one of the downsides of the business model. Or I shouldn't say business model. It's not a business model. It's a sales channel. We've had that conversation before. That's one of the downsides of the sales channel.
Yeah, for sure. The number of times I've had conversations with brands about like, is there a way to do that that doesn't destroy the brand perception? I mean, I've had that conversation many times at Guardian and with other brands over the last decade. So I feel
my order of operations is email and SMS, post purchase upsells with the caveat of, if you have a post purchase upsell that drives you meaningful incremental profit, maybe it's not worth it. But post purchase upsells generally like the second one, then ads. And then sometimes, and then price can kind of fit in different places around there where you're maybe cutting the price as you're overstocked, but you often want to avoid having to move those units on ads because they usually haven't sold for a reason. They usually have ads.
For sure.
But there is a time and a place where you've brought this up before where even if the return is a 1.5 ROAS and break even is a 2 ROAS, it might be a better trade.
Still recover some of that COGS, per unit that you invested in it. So, well, cool, man. This was a good one. I'm excited for some of the brands that we work on together to be able to utilize some of these growth strategies next year. Any final thoughts on your end?
The biggest one on the operator side is probably thinking about new product. Marketing side, like oftentimes your marketing team is able to basically deploy some of these like buy more, save more strategies or CAC to LTV strategies, but really focusing on new product and volume going into the new year is probably one of the biggest things that the brand owner can control, while also thinking about how do I get some of those cash flow objectives shared with my marketing team.
Yeah, man. I mean, honestly, I think my big takeaway is there's a strategy in this list for every brand listening right now, whether you're a consumable with high LTV or you are a new customer dominant brand that sells a durable good, or you're a high SKU count store apparel brand. This list gives you some ammo, no matter which one of those cases you're dealing with. And just remember, like, at the end of the day, all of this comes down to getting to understand your customer better. Because whether you're talking about LTV to CAC optimization, or you're talking about new product drops or buy more, save more, you don't just do these. You don't just put together offers randomly. You got to really get in the head of your ICP and think about why people have bought from you in the past. Why are they landing on your site? What are they looking for? What are their felt needs? And I think if you can do that, you're going to be much more successful with each of these strategies that we outlined here. So, yeah, look at me. Final thoughts were a marketing strategy takeaway. Look at me. What am I, a finance guy or what? But yeah, man, this is a good one, and looking forward to the next one.
Looking forward to 2026.
Let's go.